listen. What's going on with y'all, man? Your boy Mills is up out the door. Man. We got some things to talk about. Dre is on the way for the Chop It Down podcast. We're going to chop it up. We got a ton of things to talk about, but you know what time it is, man. Sam Mills, Carson Wentz, Antonio Gibson, all these things, man. Preseason game week 1 on the way. Chop It Down podcast starts right now. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. I just appreciate everybody watching.
Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. I am your host, Molly Mual, Hen Dog Mual, Coach Mual, all that good stuff. Right now, it's Tequila Mual. I ain't buying no Henny tonight, man. It's too expensive, bro. Inflation. Like I said, Dre is on the way. AJ is out, man. He's he's dealing with some things right now. And if you all know AJ, make sure that you all, send y'all thoughts his way, you know what I'm saying? And let him deal with, the things that he's dealing with. But AJ, he's out. He'll probably be back next week and all those good things, man. Hawk, what's going on, big dog? Colin, what's going on, big dog? So yeah, like I said, let's get the administrative item out the way before Dre gets in. And whichever way you are listening, always be sure to rate, review, like the show. If you are new to the Chop It Down podcast, make sure you are following on Twitch or subscribed on YouTube. It helps the show's growth. It is truly appreciated. Amani, big dog, what's going on? So let's get to the agenda right quick. Kind of break down what we got going on what's on the menu today. Sam Mills III versus Ron Rivera. We're going to talk about it, figure out what the hell exactly happened, because I don't know, man. I have hunches, but I don't know exactly what happened. Sam Mills III versus Ron Rivera. Carson Wentz. We got to get our thoughts on Carson Wentz for Dre's sake. Last week we spoke, we had some ideas on what Carson Wentz was looking like, but we don't have we have further information. And, if you're on the morning shows, you kind of understand, where my mind is at. But obviously with Dre, we want to see where he's at. Because the inconsistency from Carson Wentz, but also the reporting that's back and forth from the positive and negative on Carson, it's going to be quite interesting to trying to, I guess, get his take on where things are with the quarterback and if he even takes it serious. So Carson Wentz. Next up, Antonio Gibson. Now, I didn't know about this one, but Dre got me hip. Antonio Gibson was playing with the second string today. So we're going to talk about that. For the most part, I'm not too surprised, right? I'm not too surprised about how that thing is unfolding. But the unofficial depth chart did come out and actually did have Antonio Gibson listed as the first string running back in front of J.D. McKissick, and Brian Robinson was number 3. But it is important to note, as we do continue on with this conversation, that unofficial depth charts or preseason depth charts are more unofficial than anything else. Those aren't the final things at all. And then Roquan Smith. I don't know how y'all feel about Roquan. I would love to know, get a gauge of where y'all are at. If this is something that y'all are, you know what I just realized? I am a fool. Let me go ahead and hold on one second. I am a fool. I forgot to send that man Dre the link. I forgot to send that man the stream y'all link to the show, bro. I was like, where's Dre at? I ain't even send that man the link. But I'm still, hey, we going through the list of topics anyway, so he about to join up real quick. So yeah, Roquan Swift, man. I don't know how y'all feel about Roquan, but it's a little interesting discussion. We're going to tap into that. And then lastly, we're going to close out with Carolina versus Washington on Saturday. What do we want to see this weekend? That's going to be it. That's going to be a big game. I lied. I sliced it. It's going to be an exciting game off the strength of we ain't had football in such a long time. But I also didn't know that the game was going to be at 1 o'clock. You know how clutch that is for a Saturday? Like, it's not at 7. It's not at 8. We can hit the streets later at night. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to worry about watching no goddamn preseason game because, you know, I'm going to be locked in. I'm going to be mad as hell if I had to watch a game at 7, 8 o'clock at night and I jump going on till 11 for a preseason game, bro. I ain't got time for that. I'd rather record that shit and watch it later. So we're gonna talk about all these things right here, right now on the Trap or Dive podcast. And let me get my boy Dre this thing right now. Hey, you know, I was just talking to these boys and everybody. I don't want to, discriminate, assume everybody on here is boys, but I forgot to send you the invite. I know send everybody the invite, bro. I was like, God damn, where's Dre at? And I said, hold on, bro. I ain't saying shit to nobody.
I was sitting there waiting, man. I was backstage like I was on the Maury show. You know what I'm saying?
I saw the jump, I saw the DM, and I was like, oh shit, yep, there we go. First time. How you feeling, though, Dre? Everything good?
Everything's good, man. Shit, this game week, man. We about to get rid of this boring little month of August and July. We're about to get some real football going. So shit, I'm ready, man. I wish we had a game tonight.
Nigga, what are you talking about? I wish we did too. But the funny thing is, hey, look, you talking about this is boring. I don't know, bro, because they done fired Sam Mills a couple of days before the start of the first preseason game. So I don't know how boring Washington can really be. These guys always find a way to make something entertaining. So that's what we starting off with right here, right now, is that goddamn Sam Mills news. Ron Rivera came to the podium directly after practice, said that. Matter of fact, I got the quotes right here. I ain't even about to slice them. He said, I made a change on the coaching staff. I relieved Sam Mills of his duties. Just a difference of philosophy for the most part, and we'll go from there. But a lot of people and a lot of players didn't even know that was going on because apparently he addressed the team right after practice. Like he had a huddle with the defensive lineman and told them what the news was. So I don't even think they knew because Sam Mills wasn't at practice. And obviously... because of the situation, he probably didn't want to tell them before practice started. So they didn't know what was going on. So I'm going to go ahead, start the conversation off right there. Sam Mills III is fired. What are we taking away from this? I have thoughts, but I'm going to save them until you get your time, man, because I have a story to tell.
So for me, this whole thing was funny because I'm looking at a lot of the reactions and, a lot of people have been kind of hearing stories about Sam Mills for the last couple of years and that it's been a disconnect with him and the players. I mean, it's been one of those things that's kind of been low key, a few of the podcast guys like Sheehan and them have mentioned it. The guys like Ionitis and them didn't like Sam Mills. So a lot of people are wondering about the timing of this fire. Like, why fire him now? Why not fire him before the season? And that just leads me to believe, especially with the way Ron Rivera came out, like something must have happened, recently. I mean, maybe even right before he stepped up to that podium. I'm talking about like an all-out, man, we going at it, man. I wouldn't even be surprised if somebody swung on somebody. You know what I'm saying? The way Ron came, I was like, yeah, I relieved him of his duty. That's the first thing I get this shit off my chest. So, I mean, it was just weird because, like I said, I feel like if it was a thing where, this was brewing, then yeah, you probably would have done this a long time ago and not wait until the middle of training camp to get rid of the guy. And on top of that, I mean, his dad just got inducted into the Hall of Fame this past weekend. So I know he had missed a couple of days with that. Like the reporters were saying he wasn't there because he's with his dad for his enshrinement, whatever the case may be. So I'm not even sure if he was at practice yesterday. If anyone mentioned that he was at practice yesterday, he may not even have came back since the whole enshrinement thing. Like this may have been something like they got into it over the weekend. Maybe Ron told him, let cooler heads prevail. You go to your dad's thing and we'll see where we're at. But I mean, it was just abrupt to me to say, I mean, the way it all went down, I feel like something recently happened. Like this wasn't nothing that Ron had planned on going into the middle of training camp and saying, yeah, I'll fire him if he's not doing this by the middle of training camp. I think something recently happened between the two, and maybe not even just the two, maybe within other defensive coaches, maybe with the players. I mean, maybe all of that played into effect, but I think something drastic must have happened within this last week for that to happen today the way it did.
Let me start this whole thing off with a story. And that's why I wanted to make sure you went first, because this story is going to, I think that the most important thing is that I'm being personable, and, you know, by God's grace, fingers crossed, she is not listening to this. All right. So I had an ex one time, right? And this ex, I had like, put it this way, we were long distance. Too long distance for me. Have you ever had a long distance ex, Dre?
Yeah, I have, and it was too long distance for me.
How did it work? Like initially, early on, were you the one that committed, or did you want it and she committed to the long? How did it work? Who said, okay, let's do it? Or was it a mutual? You know what, I want to do this.
Yeah, I think with the long distance things, it's always going to be a mutual thing. Because if you're talking to somebody, you know, that much and enough every day, like, damn, you know, at this point, we kind of connected. We'll make it happen mutually. You know what I'm saying? I don't think anyone really has to kind of, you know, beg to make that happen.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, that's a very good answer. So, you know, we mutually agreed to do this thing, right? And I never did long distance before. I never even did 2 hours, 3 hours, none of that. I never did it before. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? This trip ain't nothing but a 2-hour drive if I had to make it. I'd take this trip. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing to it. So the summer is perfect. Everything is fine. Like, I've been rocking with you for X amount of time. I'm going to stick by you. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing to it. You know, ups and downs, we'll deal with them. But then you start seeing some chinks in the armor, and you start seeing some flaws, and you start questioning whether or not this thing, and everybody stick with me, you start questioning whether or not this thing is feasible for your mental health and even for her mental health. You want to make sure that everybody, because you just started this thing, from my perspective, you want to make sure that for everybody's sake and health in the situation, that if you want to break away clean, you break away clean. I agree to what you just said, Dre, and that something happened. And I think that it happened out of nowhere, because to this point, and I haven't finished my story yet, I'm mixing everything in. I agree that because for him to be around for 2 years, 2020 and 2021, and half in the offseason of 2022, he knew that he was in this for the long haul, Ron Rivera did. But I don't think he came across or understood the significance of the things that was going around him or surrounding him concerning Sam Mills. And he's like, you know, these are problematic issues and I can't continue to ignore them. And if I continue to ignore them, it's only going to hurt the relationship that I have with Sam Mills, because there's actually two of them. Sam Mills, the father, and Sam Mills, the person that works for me, his son. I can't continue to do this no longer. So for me, when you're in a situation where you're in this long distance relationship and you understand that there's chinks in the armor already, you don't want that person, that individual, to sit here and wonder how long can this really continue, when you know, like, it's just better if you dead it right here, right now, no matter what stage of the relationship that you are in. If you are in the early stages of the relationship, it's probably easier. And for Washington and for Ron Rivera to do this in training camp, I think it didn't matter like that it was training camp for Ron Rivera. I think it only mattered that he ended the relationship, because it's better for him, it's better for Sam, because whatever discontent they had with one another, it was probably easier to get rid of it now before they even continued into the regular season, because ultimately he knew that it was going to lead to a firing. It was going to lead to a breakup. And I don't know what the crux of the issue is. I don't know what happened that ultimately led up to the boiling point for Ron Rivera. But I just think that this whole situation was something that couldn't have been salvaged, or maybe it could have, but it was probably easier if they didn't have to worry about repairing it and just move on and deal with everybody else for their own separate lives, like deal with things like that. So I brought in that side to kind of identify like these aren't uncommon situations. Like we wonder about the timing. I wondered about the timing when it happened, but I think in the same instance, a situation that I had in my life where I was like, you know what, bro, I ain't got no issues with you, no serious issue with you, but I know how this is gonna go. I didn't share every single detail that we had with our relationship, me and my ex. But I know how this thing is gonna go if we continue doing this, and I know that you're gonna be mad at me, and I'll probably be annoyed with you. So let's go ahead and just rip the Band-Aid, get it out the way, keep it pushing. I may sound like an asshole, but you'll thank me later. you will fucking thank me later, bruh. I think that's kind of the situation that they were in. Ron and Sam, whatever the issue was, they just said, fuck it. I don't care that it's training camp. I don't care that it's a couple days before the first preseason game. I want to get this shit out the way. Let's go ahead and move on. And I think we'll both be better from it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy with the long distance ex story. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, who knows? Maybe Sam and his dad had a conversation this past weekend or something. Hold up. I mean, before I even say his dad anymore, I don't want to be a dick here because I watched the Hall of Fame. I could be getting confused. Which one died and they had to do his something for it? Was it Sam Mills? Is he the dead or the alive one? Because one of them died and they had to do, I don't know why I'm having a brain fart on this one.
Dre, I was drunk all Saturday. I didn't watch a single thing about the Hall of Fame.
I was in the barber shop.
The Hall of Fame, John. Yeah, I was drunk. It was a Jamaican party, bro. We partied from 4 p.m. until midnight. Oh, and they stayed even longer.
I'm surprised it ended at midnight. You know,
yeah,
Jamaican
rum punch was flowing, bro.
Oh man, I hope you had some jerk ribs.
Oh nigga, jerk pork, jerk chicken, curry goat, all that, everything.
Yeah, that's everything. How you do it.
But yeah, I don't know what happened, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. Maybe the chat can talk to us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Armani said it.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew his dad was inducted, but I mean, somebody died. I can't remember which linebacker it was. I don't know if it was Sam Mills, the dad.
Cliff Branch.
Okay, Cliff Branch. There we go. So yeah, I was wondering because they were getting inducted and they were, speaking on his behalf and stuff. So anyway, I don't know if Sam and his dad had a conversation over the weekend. Maybe this had been something Sam had been thinking about as well. I mean, with Ron saying difference of opinions, difference of philosophies. I know a lot of people say Ron says a lot of things in the media. They don't know if they can believe what he says sometimes, but that could have been the case. I mean, and obviously there was some kind of disconnect. I mean, if you watched, at least last year, you probably couldn't see it as much in 2020 because the defensive line, they did their thing in 2020, but they also played a lot of bad quarterbacks. So, they got that rep going with it. But last year, that line was way too talented to kind of underproduce the way they did. I mean, John Allen did his thing. He was a beast, but Chase Young wasn't disruptive or the disruptive force that you drafted him to be. Montez Sweat had a drop-off season. I mean, he dealt with injuries and, of course, the tragic death of his brother, but Montez Sweat wasn't the guy we had seen the previous year that had kind of broke out that year. Even Deron Payne, he had his moments, he had his flashes, but he wasn't like, star material last year. Like I said, John Allen was the only one on that defensive line that really showed out. So you sit back and you wonder, you say it's not a talent thing. This team has talent. So a lot of people are looking at the coaches. I know a lot of people question Jack Del Rio's schemes, but then you look at the positional coaches, like I said, are the most talented group on your team, which is that defensive line. You say, why aren't these guys producing? So that's when you look at Sam Mills. Now, Sam Mills III, from what I understand, he never played the position in the NFL defensive line. I think he might have been a linebacker or somewhere else on the defensive but he wasn't on the defensive line. Not to say that you can't be a good defensive line coach if you weren't there, but somewhere there was a disconnect where he wasn't reaching these guys. I don't know if that played a part in why Matt Ioannidis left or he didn't want to be here no longer. I know, through sources and people saying things on the radio that Ioannidis had requested a trade a couple of years ago because he didn't like Sam Mills. And they never really gave specific reasons why, but maybe that's where Ron's difference of philosophies come in. Maybe these guys didn't want to do it. But we also heard Ron say, multiple times that we're going to do things our way, which is the coach's way. And if you aren't following the coach's way, then you can get out. And he even alluded to, before we got here, you guys were 3-13, and you're talking about you want to do it your way, but your way got you 3-13. So Ron mentions things like that. So I don't know if he was backing his coaches for a while, but at some point, maybe they just couldn't get over that hurdle with the disconnect between Sam Mills and the rest of the defensive line. So maybe the difference of philosophies did come into play there.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think from a technical standpoint, I see why not. Appreciate you checking in. Oh no, who is this? Tyler. Y'all got the same thing. Y'all got the same what's the name? Avatar. He mentioned it from the gap side, just from a play side, like he felt that they were not playing within the scheme, essentially. One half playing 2 gap, one half playing 1 gap. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, Dre. And I also think, like, when it comes to coaching, a lot of people, when people try to quantify what a good coach is in the NFL, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, good when you see good, but when everything is mediocre, average, or like slightly above average, it's hard for a fan to kind of identify what that looks like. Like, you can't really sit here and say what it looks like. And I think Sam Mills fits in that space. And it's not on Jay Tyler specifically. I'm more so actually giving credit to Jay Tyler, because what if that is the case in that they're not necessarily playing the same? But also, secondly, how is Sam Mills being able to communicate this? Like, how is he able to teach or get through to these guys, as you kind of alluded to, Dre? How is he trying to get through to these guys? Like, no, this is what we need to do. This is what the coach wants. I need to show you how this needs to be done. And he's not able to do that. And also, how is he being able to be constructive to these guys who clearly had issues with him from day one? I don't think that Sam Mills clearly was able to get through to none of these guys. And obviously it rubbed him the wrong way. And I think I'll give credit to JP Finley. I was listening to him earlier today. I don't remember what platform. He does the radio and a podcast. He mentioned that immediately after he got let go, there was a couple players on the roster, the defensive line, who were relieved and happy that they got go, or that he got let go. Now, I don't remember if that was a report as in, like, this is how we felt, or as in this is something that he assumed based on what he knew from the past. Either way, there were people. The bottom line of what I'm getting at is that there were people still on this roster who had issues with Sam Mills. They still had issues with Sam Mills. Matt Ioannidis was gone. Tim Settle's gone. Deron Payne is still here. John Allen was still here. We know that John Allen and Matt Ioannidis were the two who had issues with him. But for this whole defensive line unit and understanding who they're going into right now, I think, what is his name? Let me pull it up. What is that guy's name?
Talking about the guy they promoted?
Yeah, I'm putting
Jeff Zaniga. It's a weird pronunciation.
Coach Z. They call him Coach Z.
Yeah, there we go. We'll just call him that.
Yeah, Coach Z. But for them to have Coach Z now, they were elated because Coach Z was more of a vocal guy. He had character and charisma. That's the word. He had charisma. So I think that understanding where Jeff Z is compared to how Coach Mills actually coached these guys, I think there was a multitude of differences that we can't quantify. And I think that's where that's kind of where I'm getting to when we say I don't think Sam Mills was a bad coach. I just don't think that he was probably the right coach for these guys, and for Ron Rivera to rock for him as long as he did, and understood from day one that Sam Mills wasn't getting along with these players. I think he probably just felt like it was time to just go ahead and let it go. And it didn't matter that it was training camp. For him, it didn't matter that it was training camp. Just time to let it go. My question, though, that I do say in my head is, like, from a management standpoint, even with everything that I said and everything that you said, Dre, why, if you know that there was problems for 2 years, why wait until August 9th We know that Ryan Kerrigan came around. We know that Warren Sapp came around, and Ron Rivera even said, yeah, I have the quote right here. He said, on the question was if former Washington defensive end Ryan Kerrigan will continue to assist with the defensive line. Ron said, well, he'll continue to shadow like he's been doing. Ryan came out of here to see what it was like. He's truly interested in coaching, but for the most part, he's just continuing to do the shadowing that he's been doing. So I say that to say, these two been out here, Warren Sapp, Ryan Kerrigan. I just feel like if you were to really kind of hone into or tap into what people felt or how people felt about Sam Mills, you should have been more aware and understood that it's probably something you could have done a long time ago, and you still could have had Warren Sapp around and Ryan Kerrigan around. It had nothing to do with Sam Mills. So it's just interesting to see like this whole dynamic play out because you don't know what the true intentions are just yet. And on top of that, what was the true boiling point for Ron Rivera to even say, you know what, fuck you, you got to go.
But I agree 100% with that, Jamal, to close out my thoughts on this. I feel like Ron could have been more proactive in his approach with Sam Mills. I mean, obviously that disconnect was there. I mean, if something did happen, which in my opinion, or, my theory is something must have abruptly happened to make him say, okay, this is it. This is the last straw. But even still, it probably shouldn't have came to that. You probably should have said, after the season, we're going to go our separate ways. This isn't working out. And you already had Coach Z. You had Coach Z waiting in the wings anyway. He was already on the staff, as an assistant defensive line coach. So you could have easily just made that promotion. You wouldn't even have had to go out and do a whole, interview process or whatever. You could have got it done with. But obviously with this happening, today, the way it did, it was a buildup. And I think something came to a head this past week, and it probably shouldn't have came to that. So that's my closing thoughts.
Well, what do you think? What do you think about this one? How do you think the players would have felt if you had to guess? Because it's hard to really even say anything. But Jay Tyler, appreciate you checking in too. He brought up another good thing, like he think the players would have revolted if he stayed on. I don't think a defensive line coach would have any. I don't think a competent or very good or even an elite defensive line coach would have. And I hate to play into this, but I really just do think it's true. I don't think an elite defensive line coach or even a very good defensive line coach would have allowed them, Deron Payne and John Allen, to fight on the sideline. I don't think that would have happened if they were very good or elite. And to Jay's question, or Jay's point, I think the players would have revolted. What do you think in terms of? I wouldn't say revolt. I mean, revolt is a strong word, but just in general, if things continue to sour or go south with this team, especially on the defensive line position, do you think that these guys would have even bounced back from last year? Like, we all would assume that they would have had a fresh mulligan. And I assume that, like, even to this point, Sam Mills is here. I would have thought that they would have fresh mulligan. But if he's gone to this point, there's a difference of opinion according to Ron. What do you think? Like, and we can close out, we can switch subjects on after this one, but I don't think Tyler is wrong. I think there's some credence here in terms of disagreements and frustration if they would have stayed around.
Well, he's got a point, because I mean, you look at positional coaches in football. I mean, not just the NFL, but on the college level as well. Like, they're usually responsible for their unit. Yeah, the head coach is responsible for the team in itself, but each positional coach, they're responsible for their units. They're responsible for making sure they're disciplined. They're responsible for making sure their assignments are right and everything. So if John and Deron are doing that on the sideline, to me, that wasn't just, we're frustrated during this game. I think there was some build up there with John and Deron, the way that happened. I mean, obviously they went to Alabama together. They're really good friends off the field a lot of times. I mean, I don't know how close they are, but still, for them to get into a fight on the sideline, that means something was brewing. That means Sam Mills may have been watching this whole thing, unfold. So he could have probably stopped this before it even happened or prevented it. But I don't want to place all the blame on him, because at the end of the day, John Allen and Deron pain. They're, grown men. So grown men make choices and they do what they do. But I mean, I do agree that there is some credence there that, if Sam Mills was, better at, being a disciplinary as a position coach, that may not happen, even on the sideline. Maybe he steps in quicker or something. So yeah, I do think there's something there.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Everybody, we got to talk about that boy. That boy, Carson Wentz, man. Last we talked, Dre, I don't even know what the consensus was. I mean, outside of AJ, we know AJ just ain't fucking with Carson. But I don't remember what the consensus was in our conversation last Tuesday with Carson Wentz. But to this point, at least we know for sure that there's been a ton of inconsistencies from Carson, but there's also been an inconsistent level of reporting, specifically in terms of him having good days and bad days. Like there hasn't been like a true level. Like we don't know where the gauge is. We don't know where the true gauge is. We just know that he's inaccurate and that he's holding on the ball too long sometimes. And maybe that is the true consistency throughout the 2-week period that he's been at training camp. Who knows? But hearing people say, some of the same people who say that he's not having good practices also say that, you know what, I was wrong, or that he's thrown nice passes in a particular session. I don't know. I'm going to hand the floor to you because you haven't been on since last Tuesday. What are you making of everything that's coming out regarding Carson Wentz? I do have some thoughts. And I said this on the morning show, but I want to make sure you get your thoughts out there first because, again, I'm going to get into it. Floor is yours, bro.
I mean, so the Carson Wentz thing is a funny topic in a sense because Carson, I mean, he's never really been known as like a surgeon on the football field. He's never been known as a guy that's going to dice you up with just pure accuracy throughout a game. I mean, he's a big play quarterback. I mean, he's a big play quarterback. He's a gamer, but he also, that gamerness, it gets him in trouble a lot of times in games. So, you got to take into account and, reason why this is probably getting blown out of proportion is because Carson Wentz has a reputation that precedes him with the last two teams he's been with. So right now, his margin of error is very thin. Like he has a very thin margin of error, regardless of what he's doing out there. You're scrutinizing every pass. So he can't go out there and get the, kind of like with other quarterbacks, like a regular quarterback that comes in to a new team, he can miss a couple of passes and you'll say, all right, he's just getting to know his receivers. He's just getting to know the playbook. He's just getting to know the scheme. But with Carson Wentz, it's, oh man, here he goes being inaccurate again. So he doesn't kind of get the same leeway as a normal quarterback in a new situation would get because you're judging him not only in his training camp, you're looking back the last 2 years of what he's done in his body of work the last 2 years. And you're saying, all right, well, if he's missing height, this is just who he is. This is what he does. But it's kind of hard to judge. It's kind of hard. I mean, I don't want to be unfair to Carson, but at the same time, you don't want to, just take it with a grain of salt either. Like you want to kind of keep everything in perspective when judging Carson Wentz and, hearing these reports about his inaccuracies. I mean, then, you come out today and you hear that he had like damn near a perfect day. I mean, so, it's like the mixed reports and that's probably what you've been getting with Carson the last 2 years, which is why you don't know what to take right now until you actually see him in game action. Like, I mean, I know a couple of people have said you really can't judge him until you see him with a game plan. Like right now, they're not really working on real game plans. I know Ron mentioned something about, certain things they're looking for, they're trying to do. So they're looking at the throws differently than the media or the fans are looking at it. So it's like everything, you're taking everything and you have to just be patient with it because right now we fully don't know. We know what Carson Wentz kind of is. I mean, we've seen his career, but here in Washington, we don't really know fully what we're getting until we actually see him consistently on a game-to-game basis.
So here's my thing. I think when it comes to Carson Wentz, man, and it's not, I wouldn't even start with Carson. I would even start last year. I would start with how the defense played last year. And remember all these conversations about how great the defense looked last year, last offseason, last training camp, and that they had their days against the offense, and the majority of those days were dominant and all these things. And we know how the defense turned out in the regular season, all that stuff like that. But the bottom line was more about the offense. These guys weren't looking good. And I think you were on the show when we spoke with Doc Walker. And that was after the first preseason game, if not the second preseason game. I think it was after Cincinnati. So whatever week that was, if it wasn't the first, it was probably the second. I asked Doc Walker, because this offense was not looking good in the preseason either. And when I say not looking good, I specifically talked about on the plus side of the field, converting on third downs, getting in the end zone, red zone opportunities, all of the key metrics that had nothing to do with it's just preseason. Like all of those metrics that had nothing to do with it's just being preseason. Doc shrugged it off. He didn't give a damn. I'm like, all right, cool. I respect your opinion. I disagree. I swear to God, bruh. And I don't even have to, I'm not lying because we all saw it. Week 1, what happened? Fucking 3 points or 6 points, and when we had opportune times to really score against the Chargers, and we're putting up 3 and 6 points, or we're going 3 and outs in situations where we can't convert. And it wasn't even just against the Chargers. We moved forward in other games and we started out slow. All these things that had something to do with the fact that they weren't on the same page from an offensive standpoint, and also obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick leaving had something to do with some things, but even still, when he was in the game or when he was in training camp, they weren't connecting the way that they should have been. Let's fast forward to 2022. I think the issue, I'm not putting this on fans. I just want people to be aware. I'm not even pointing the finger at anybody. When you hear reports about people who are struggling, especially at the quarterback position, Dre, that's struggling in camp or having inconsistent days at camp, understand this. You're not going to hear that from top tier quarterbacks. I'm going to just leave it blank. We know who top tier quarterbacks are. We can go to Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, all that stuff. You're not going to hear that the offense is trash or they're having days where they're absolutely not getting anything done. You're not going to hear none of that. You're going to hear them having interceptions or turnovers because turnovers are part of the game, and turnovers against your team, your defense is part of the game. But when it comes to production and being able to get the ball in the end zone and big plays and all these other opportunities, consistently, you're going to see that from these guys who knows how to pick apart a defense. So I say that to say, when you see a team or when you see observations from journalists who are there or beat reporters who are there every single day and they are concerned with what they're seeing because it doesn't look crisp, it doesn't look consistent, you're not seeing crispness on a consistent basis at that, you need to take that into account. And I know you spoke on this, and I agree with you. It is a little, it's alarming. And I don't want people to say that we're doomed. I want people to understand that I'm concerned. That's all I'm saying. I want people to understand that I'm concerned because if you know what looks good when you see it, but if you see inconsistency on a week in and week out basis, that is problematic because I understand he's coming into a new system, but sometimes playing quarterback isn't that difficult. And it doesn't matter what you're trying or what you're trying to work out, because if the inaccuracy is a problem, Ron Rivera can defend you all you want to. Guess what? You still got to play the games. And ultimately, I can't wait till the game start. We do know that he's going to start and play on Saturday against the Carolina Panthers. But ultimately, when the games start, Ron Rivera can't defend you no more because we're all going to see how good you look. And that's kind of where my issue is with Carson, or my concern is. I don't have an issue. That's where my concern is with Carson, bruh. It's I need to understand that what Ron is saying is true. You just working on some shit. Because right now, if they're telling us that you're struggling, I seen it before. I seen this shit before. And I'm not about to get fooled again because people are trying to defend the decision to bring in Carson Wentz because he has a stronger arm than Taylor Heineke. I don't want that to happen, bruh. And you're not going to fool me, bruh. So I need to see some shit.
So, Jamal, I do agree with you in that we've been fans of this franchise for a long time. So we can't be moved by certain things. Like even with today, I hear the reports that Carson Wentz is having this great day, this perfect day or whatever. I'm not moved by that. Cool. That's good to hear, encouraging. But until you actually show me on the field, then that's what really matters to me. But at the same time, I can't get too down on these reports either. When I hear, the inconsistencies with Carson, because I also, my expectations for Carson are very tempered. Like I don't expect Carson to come in and be,
also depends on how you view them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't, expect Carson to come in and be just, 2017 Carson Wentz. I mean, I guess we could just throw that out there because, I mean, as I've mentioned before, when you look at Carson Wentz's career, he has two anomalies in his career for years. 2017 was an anomaly as far as how great it was, and 2020 was an anomaly for how bad it was. Carson is typically a solid quarterback, so to speak, when you look at his, years all throughout. I mean, there's probably context and reasons why he was great in 2017, and there's also context and reasons for why he was bad in 2020. But at the end of the day, I think you are getting an upgraded quarterback. You just shouldn't expect a guy that's going to come in and be this precision passer, just, this guy that's going to just light it up with accuracy and have high completion percentages. He's going to hit the big plays, which is what this offense really wants right now. They want a quarterback that can stretch the defense, that can get you out of 8-man fronts. They want to be able to threaten you downfield, and that's why they surrounded him with the weapons they have now. So you hope Curtis Samuel can stay healthy. You hope Jahan Dotson is the guy you thought he was. You hope Terry continues being the great player he was. Diami Brown steps up, the tight ends step up. So maybe Carson is elevated and he doesn't have to carry mediocre players around him. But at the same time, you can't expect Carson to be just this, come in and be this great passer or this 2017 version of himself. You just need him to give this team chances week in and week out and not be the reason why you're losing games. So that's why right now, when I hear the inconsistencies, I'm not too concerned. Even when I hear a great day, I'm not too elated when I hear that he's having a great day. Like right now, I'm just taking it all in and say, okay, we really need to see what this guy does in game action. Like, I want to at least be fair to him in that. Like I had my reservations about the trade initially, but now I just want to see what he can do here, and I want to be fair to him, and I'm going to give him a chance, just like I've done, other quarterbacks, even if I've, had my reservations about him. But I think he does. I mean, at the very least, he's an upgrade to what we had. I mean, that bar is low. I get that. But, I mean, I think he's at least that.
Hey, look, Ryan is right. We ain't played a game yet. Dre is right. He wants to see some things first, like on the field. And I want to be clear. Like I said what I said. I just wanted to put people on notice. Just don't be surprised if things turn out to be exactly what the reporting is. But to you all's point, Ryan, we have not played a game yet. 100% agree. And it all comes down to on the field. And if there's a magical turnaround to like the shit that was going on in training camp is a complete non-factor, cool. I have no problem accepting that. And to Dre's point, seeing what happens on the field when there's actual schemed up plays and it forces Carson Wentz to focus on where he needs to go with the football versus like preseason where, you're not game planning at all and you're just understanding your concept and you're trying to figure out, whatever coverage you're up against. All right, we're playing a cover 3. All right, I need to know where the ball is headed, or maybe I'm making audible, and I figure out because they're in cover 3, we can go to a cover 3 beater, whatever it is. Like, cool. I'm perfectly understanding of that. I just want people to understand that, like for my side, when you hear that the trend hasn't bucked in Washington, because again, I don't know how everybody felt, and I'm not going to assume that everybody felt a particular way. I hate when fans do this and lump everybody in. I will just say this. I want everybody to be reminded that the reports in minicamp and OTAs, Dre, was that this motherfucker Carson Wentz was balling. Like, they said that. That wasn't fake. They said true. He was balling in train in OTAs and minicamp. So I just want people to be aware of that. So, like, it wasn't like there's an agenda or anything. They're literally reporting what they're seeing. So I just want people to be aware when we hear that these issues are coming out and the competition has ramped up because training camp is way different than these off-season practices and shit like that. Just understand that, sure, we haven't played a game yet. I agree with you, Ryan. I agree with you, Dre. We need to see more, and I'm all for that. I have patience. I just know if there isn't practices similar to the top tier quarterbacks where you're seeing efficiency from the quarterback position, then you're probably going to be in for another bumpy ride. And whatever that bumpy ride takes you, you hope that it gets you to a playoff contending season. But just don't expect elite quarterback play. I'm not going to sit here and expect that. And to Dre's point, nobody should sit here and expect that unless you thought that he was just completely out of his place in Indianapolis. Who knows? That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I will say to close out that I do think that it's probably fair to expect he probably will look elite in some games this season. I mean, Carson Wentz, he does that every season. He'll have some games where he looks really elite. Then he's going to have some games probably where it's, you look and you're like, what the fuck is he doing? So, I mean, I think that's it's probably just staying medium, as Jim Zorn would say, keep it medium. You just have those medium expectations for Carson. You don't set them too high. You don't set them too low. But I think, for Carson's sake and to kind of get him going, I hope that he does get off to a fast start, not only just in preseason, but in the regular season. I do think he's a quarterback that with momentum, he gets better and better, and he builds on momentum. And I think that when he's a quarterback, when the momentum is going south, he kind of snowballs with it. So you want to get him going quick and you want to get him going early.
Two things. So would you take Cousins at 67% accuracy? That's what Apollo asked us.
I mean,
that's the first thing.
I hate to admit it, but I mean, at this point, I mean, not right now. I mean, I like Carson. I want to see.
Hey, bro,
I'm thinking about what we've had the last couple of years. I'm thinking about like the whole Alex Smith one leg, Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah, sure, give me 67% Kirk Cousins over those guys. But right now with Carson Wentz, I mean, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to trade Carson for Kirk at this point. I mean, that's probably an even trade.
Okay. Second thing was, did you go to FedEx Field Saturday?
No, I didn't. But actually, I will be at training camp tomorrow, so I'm going up tomorrow. Yeah.
Bet. We need them updates from you, bro. I'm retweeting everything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm doing all the updates. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna look at some things, and then I'm gonna throw something out there here and there.
I bet. Respect, man. Do some digging, man. You may run into some of those insiders that you know. You know what I'm saying? They can give you the details.
I'm staying low key. I'm low key.
All right. Let's go ahead and transition, man, from Carson Wentz. Hey, Apollo's hilarious, Brad said Carson sucks, but he's a tool, but Wentz is scary. That's a hilarious.
Yeah, I'm good on dealing with Kirk Cousins' whole persona. I don't care much for the persona of Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah, I'm over that.
Yeah. Okay, so Antonio Gibson, Roquan Smith, those are gonna be some two quick hitting topics. Antonio Gibson, man, second string today. You actually got me hip to this one. Where are we at with Antonio Gibson? Like what was the story? Like, what was the storyline with this one? Was it they just wanted to see where other players were at? Cause I don't even know who was first string. I would assume it was Brian Robinson, maybe JD McKissick. I don't know, but I would assume it was Brian Robinson. What was the situation with Antonio Gibson today? Because that kind of made some news.
Yeah, I just saw multiple tweets from people who were out there that said Gibson was running with the second unit a lot today. And I know I heard some things last week where he had some more fumbling issues in a couple of practices. So I don't know if this was kind of like a punishment thing or if this is just a thing where Brian Robinson is looking good. But, I mean, that's kind of one of the things I guess we'll talk about a little bit before we leave as far as preseason goes and one of the things I want to see. But Brian Robinson, from everything I've heard, everyone is saying they're impressed with him. I mean, that's been one of the names I consistently see pop up as a guy that's showing out. I mean, I don't know how much you can really gauge from training camp because, I mean, the pads, they're not hitting all the time. They just started putting the pads on a couple of days ago. But Brian Robinson is a guy that continually stands out. I mean, he's a natural at the running back position. Obviously, we always have to hear about Antonio Gibson's transition and how he doesn't see holes naturally as a normal running back would, even though he's very physically gifted. So I don't know with this whole second string thing, but people were kind of talking about that today. I don't know if that's something that's we're going to see going forward. I don't know if they just want to give Brian Robinson more reps with the number one team, or if this could be a thing where Antonio Gibson may have to look over his shoulder and say, man, I could be really losing some carries to this guy. So that's something to watch out for.
Yeah, I got one statement and a question. The statement is more so about a reminder to everybody that last year, AG got benched twice. That boy got benched twice.
That's
So
true.
they ain't gonna be. They're not gonna be hesitant. Like those could have just been wake up call type of decisions or strategies that Ron Rivera and running back coach. I'm mad. I'm forgetting his name. Help me out.
Randy Jordan.
Randy Jordan. It could have been statements that they were trying to send or messages that they were trying to send to Antonio Gibson. So maybe not this year, but even still, for him to get benched twice, I think is more indicative of we're not going to be scared to make this move moving forward. It's going to be based on your performance. It's going to be based on who we have out here who can challenge you. And J.D. McKissic was never in a position to challenge Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
He's a really good player, but
That's
in
not
terms
his
of
role.
what they want, exactly. In terms of what they want to do with Antonio, they're like that's not going to be the guy that challenges Antonio. It'll be a guy like Brian Robinson. So you have a Brian Robinson in place, and I don't want to hype up anything from training camp as much as we did with the Carson Wentz situation, or much as I did with the Carson Wentz situation. Admittedly, even though I do want people to know that it's a concern, I do think that Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson taking a back seat on one day isn't indicative of him actually losing his spot. But I also think that for somebody to get another look at first string is something that the coaches, it's something that tells me the coaches actually have an eye on something. Like they want to see what this looks like, because if it works out, they know that if Antonio fucks up, they have something in their back pocket. And it's something similar to, we don't have to tap into it if you don't want to, but something similar to what Jamin Davis is with the defensive side of the football, and David Mayo. When I went out there Friday, that was the first time, according to some of the people that I talked to out there, because it was a surprise to them too when we talked about it. They was like, look, David Mayo starting with the ones and the 5-2, like it wasn't like he came in with the ones, like came in sporadically. He started. Like he came out there with the ones. That was his package. So while that happened sometimes last year in terms of David Mayo having certain run fits towards the latter end of the year, at the end of the day, it's more so like we're going to try and see what this looks like, because we have an idea of our best personnel fits. And if this works for us, we're going to keep using it. And flip that to the offensive side with Antonio Gibson. If they see that Brian Robinson, assuming that was the guy who started over Antonio Gibson today in training camp, they have an idea of who they want out there, and they have an idea of if Antonio Gibson continues to mess up, we have some exposure on Brian Robinson, assuming it's him, as the starting running back for Washington.
Well, yeah, I mean, to follow up on that, to your point, Jamal, where you mentioned Antonio Gibson getting benched 2 games last year, you got to feel like the staff is a little irked with those fumbles and turnovers. I mean, I think they probably believe they lost a couple of games single-handedly to Antonio Gibson. I know I can name one off the top of my head in the Chargers game. I mean, the Chargers game, you got all the momentum in the world. He fumbles the ball on the 5-yard line, first game of the season. Chargers score a touchdown right there. We never score again. That's their final score in the game. So, that's one of those things. If he's still showing that in training camp, they're like, okay, Antonio, you're talented, but how good is this talent if you're going to cough the ball up and put us in positions to lose games? So, and Brian Robinson, that's something we talked about when he got drafted. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he fumbled in his college career. And so that's not only is he a natural running back, but that's a big positive. And the fact that this guy doesn't fumble, and here you got a guy that has been coughing the ball up, more than you would like him to cough up the ball. So I do think that, this might be a little bit of a message they are sending to Antonio. Like, man, you are competing at this point. You're competing to be our starting running back. We're not handing you the job because we want you to work harder and we want you to be better. So, yeah, I do think that he may be on notice right now.
My boy Sleezo, man. Hey, I am proud of you, bruh. Keep doing your thing over there, man. I see what you got going on. And I'm locked in, bruh, on a personal side. So appreciate you checking in. And keep doing your shit, bruh. Keep grinding, bruh, because you're going to get where you need to be. Whatever your goal is, bruh. I know what you got going on. Yeah, man, that's AG. I don't know how. He said he fumbled twice but never lost one. Who we talking about right now? Fumbled twice, but never lost one. I know he mentioned Alvin Morris. Okay.
Maybe that was a training camp last week. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I'm tripping. My bad. He talking about Friday. I was there. Yeah, nah, he actually lost. He lost both of them Jones. He
Oh, he
lost
lost
both of
both
them
of them.
fumbles.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he lost. Cause he mentioned the goal line too. Yeah, Jay Tyler was mentioning the go. Oh, B Rob. Oh, he's talking about B Rob. All right. He's saying B Rob fumbled last year. He fumbled twice, but never lost one when he was with Alabama. Okay.
Got you.
All right. Cool. Okay. So quickly, Roquan Smith, man, where are we at with this one? Does it make sense for Washington? Should they go after Roquan? And we'll lump all these things. Does it make sense? Should they go after him? What would you give up? All that stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would go after Roquan Smith. I mean, I don't think it's likely just because I just haven't seen this team be aggressive, when these kind of big names come available. But I would absolutely love if they go after Roquan Smith. I mean, he's that sideline linebacker that we've been missing or that we've been wanting for years. I mean, would the Bears accept that? I mean, yeah, maybe they could add something to what's his name, Justin Fields' plate. He probably needs some more guys over there. But no, I mean, absolutely. If you could make that trade and you are a realistic option for this guy, there would be no question because he's obviously better than anyone on the roster. I mean, I know people want to give Cole Holcomb a chance. I mean, hell, I don't mind giving Cole Holcomb a chance, but when you got something better, you know what I mean? You go after something better. Like I said, if you could have steak, you're going to have steak. You wouldn't have McDonald's if if the steak is on the table. So, you know what I'm saying? Let me get Roquan if I can get him. I just don't think it's likely. But yeah, he would make sense from a scheme fit standpoint. He would probably be the complete piece on the defense. And as far as what I would give up for him, I would, probably give up a second and a third rounder or something like that. Maybe a second this year, a third round next year. So, yeah.
I thought about what would be some fair compensation for Roquan. Short story, I would go after him. I personally would go after him. And AJ, shout out to AJ. I want to make sure that he gets this credit because I actually thought about it after he said it. Like, what would we do? I wouldn't give up Daron Payne for Roquan. Now, I did try to quantify why would it make sense for Washington to do something like that? Give up a defensive lineman at a unit who is already thin at the starting positions. Like, you don't want to give up Daron Payne, and then all of a sudden you only have two good defensive interior linemen, and everybody else is edge rushers and things like that. And you have to find a makeshift guy to kind of fill the void. I didn't agree with that side, but then I thought about an alternative that nobody talked about when they threw, when they tried to throw Daron Payne in there. What about Jamin Davis or what about Cole Holcomb? It would be easier to throw Cole Holcomb in a trade package for Roquan Smith when you're trying to upgrade a linebacker position and you can still keep your first round pick from 2021 on your roster and a guy that you have to re-sign at the end of next year. Would you go for that all-pro guy, or would you say I want an all-pro guy to go with Cole Holcomb, who has potential to be something? You have to re-sign both of them to an extent. Why not trade Cole, have him ball out in Chicago, have them worry about re-signing Cole, but then you bring in an all-pro who can solidify the front seven or help solidify the front seven. So my thing is, Dre, if anything was going to be traded, I would trade Cole Holcomb for Roquan Smith, but I would also throw in some draft picks. That's the only thing that I would do for Roquan, but I wouldn't trade anything on the defensive line. I wouldn't even trade nothing on offense. I would think about receiver to who said it? To Jay Tyler's point. I would think about receiver. Diami's my guy, but if you think that Roquan is a dog, I would be mad, but fuck it, go for it. Like, do it. You know what I'm saying? I'll be mad.
That's why you got Curtis Samuel, right? You got Curtis Samuel so you can make Diami expendable. And I mean, Curtis was talking this shit today. I know. I wish AJ was here for this one, but
though.
Curtis was talking this shit
that
today.
Man Curtis out.
Curtis said he is playing for sure. Week 1, put the worries to rest. He's doing it. So we'll see, man. I just hope that if he does play, he doesn't sit out 3 weeks after that. You know, I want him to play. I want consistency. I want to see a string of games from that guy. So
So for me, my thing is, I would if I was to. So I'm interested in Roquan. I don't think we have the position up front in terms of the defensive line to make that trade. I would not trade Daron Payne for Roquan. That would just make our situation up front, like we lose one and we give one, like we get one, like it would still present a problem because I think Daron Payne is a good player, but I would trade a linebacker for him, and I will also trade a linebacker and a receiver for him, as well as a draft pick to kind of sweeten the deal for our side. So, or maybe even multiple draft picks. You can trade up to 5 pieces or 5 assets, I would say. So, we'll see where that goes. But all in all, while we're over here spitballing, Dre, I don't think that's going to be anything.
That's what I said. Like, honestly, when this whole Roquan news dropped, I didn't even want to get into it because I'm like, look, I don't think we're trading for this dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to, talk myself into something like this because it's just, if you just watch what this regime's doing, I mean, they're just not going for these big splash type of trades when it comes to, those type of positions. Outside of quarterback, Carson Wentz you could view as a splash, but they were desperate. They were desperate at quarterback. They had to make a move. They don't, as quite contrary to what fans believe, they don't feel as desperate about the linebacker position as a lot of fans think they should feel. That's the thing, and it's a multitude of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, the linebacker position is starting to be devalued in the NFL, and they just kind of like what they have, better than a lot of people do.
Let me say something that I said something earlier, bro. Your first move in the offseason was to re-sign David Mayo. Your second move in the offseason your second move in the offseason was to get the guy from Philly who ain't playing a whole goddamn year. That was your second move at linebacker this offseason. And y'all gonna try and convince me when the news come out that Roquan wants to trade, that Washington, sure, they need to go for him, but you gonna tell me that you think that Washington has a really good shot at going for him, Roquan Smith, after they re-signed David Mayo and then went out for a guy who ain't playing 2 years or a year and a half? They don't have no intention on going after Roquan. Dre is 100% right. They are very comfortable in their own skin. And somebody else said that in the chat too. I just peeped. I'm probably, oh goddamn, the chat flowing, man. I respect y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I guess this is a good thing. And maybe I need to get a goddamn moderator eventually. Oh, has a plan and he's consistently sticking to it. I don't think that was the comment, but either way. Here we go. We got a couple other things. All those things. But point being, homegrown guy. There it is. That's what I was looking for. Chevy, appreciate you checking in. That's what I was looking for. He ain't trading for anyone, bro. And I'm 100% I 100% agree with him. So, that's how I feel, bro. Like, a lot of people gotta understand. Like, look at the moves that he made at linebacker already when we were saying that linebacker was a problem in January. He ain't got no intentions of doing shit. Okay. So I'm gonna help my boy Sleezo out right quick, man. He is a Philly fan, so he's definitely interested in Wentz. We can give a one sentence comment, and I'll start this one off, bro. I don't know if inconsistency has been a theme over there, Sleezo, in Philly when Wentz was around in your time, but things have been up and down with Carson, and the reporting is essentially as simple as we need to see what he looked like in the games because practice ain't it right now.
I mean, Sleezo, to answer Sleezo's question, I can't tell you right now, Sleezo. I haven't seen training camp. I've heard a couple things. Yeah, he's been up and down. Like I said, that may be the thing with Carson. That may be what we're getting. Who knows at this point? But we'll find out soon. That's all I can say. We will find out soon,
Yes, sir.
So, Jamal, before we leave, are we giving any preseason game thoughts? What are we doing?
Oh, man? That's what we call it. That's what we call it.
Okay. All right, just making sure. Because I'm ready.
Hell yeah. Hey, Saturday, 1:00, bro. Saturday, 1:00, bro. I was talking about it before you hopped on. I don't remember the last time we had a fucking 1:00 game on a Saturday for a preseason game at that. But I'm happy because I get to turn up at nighttime, bro. I go to a lounge, hit the city, some shit. You know what I'm saying? I get to turn up, bro. So I ain't worried about a damn thing. But hell yeah, I'm ready for this, man. What you want to see this weekend when Carolina takes on Washington? We do know that Carson Wentz is playing. I don't think Curtis Samuel is playing the first game at least. And then in terms of injuries, it's only Tuesday, so we'll know more later. But in terms of injuries, Cole Turner hasn't practiced this week yet, and we'll go from there with some other players. But yeah, what do you want to see?
The obvious things, of course, we want to see Carson Wentz. We want to see what he's looking like at least. To your point, you mentioned last year about preseason and how the offense didn't look good. And you were 100% right. You don't want to see offense start off slow. I know it's preseason, but you want to see them instill some kind of confidence to say, hey, we're getting things clicking. We're getting timing right. We're getting some things right. We're moving the ball. We're showing you promise going into the season that we can score. I don't want to see the offense get off to a slow start. So that's first things first. I would love to see. I don't know how long Carson's playing. Maybe he plays 2 drives, but in those 2 drives, I do hope to see a scoring drive, like 50. Give me 50% on that. At least give me 1 scoring drive. Where you move the ball. And you were efficiently moving downfield, and you ended that drive with a score. So that's first things first. Second thing, I am very intrigued with Brian Robinson, as we just talked about. This is what I want to see because, in training camp, it's really kind of hard to gauge what the running backs are doing a lot of times, especially if they're not always in pads. And then, you kind of got a far, vision when you're at training camp. You can't always see what they're seeing and the holes they're taking. So you just kind of want to see them in game action. I want to see Brian Robinson in game action to see how he looks behind this offensive line. I do not think that all of our offensive line is healthy this week. At least I don't think Chase Royer is probably not going to play this weekend. I don't know about Trey Turner, but still, you still got some guys on the offensive line that I would like to see Brian Robinson run behind. Just to see if he is the guy that's been impressing everyone. And of course, Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson is a guy that's been getting all of the rave this offseason. He's been getting hyped up, man. A couple of people within the know, man, they saying that the team thinks that this guy's the best receiver on the team. I can't go that far until I actually see the guy play some NFL games because Terry is still that dude. But if Jahan is what they say he is, that is a great thing to say that you have him and Terry, 2 dogs on the outside or wherever you want to line those dudes at. So I want to see Jahan get his first taste of NFL action. I'm not expecting the dude to go out there and look like D Jackson or anything, but just go out there, show them hands off a little bit, show me some crisp routes. Defensively, I think I am going to look for Fedarian Mathis because this is a guy who you really don't know how he's doing in training camp because he plays the dirty position on the defensive line. I know a lot of people, kind of hated the pick and they said we created a hole that we didn't need to create at defensive line. But at the same time, no one on the defensive line, including the guys who left, did what Fedarian Mathis is supposed to do or the strength that he's supposed to bring to the defensive line. So I want to see him, I want to see how he attacks. I want to see how he's progressing. I think preseason to be a good indication of, what he might can do, at least with some blockers. And of course, Jamin Davis, I'm going to be looking at him, man. I want to see if he's taking any steps, any strides. I want to see the defense come out there with confidence. The secondary, I want to see, do we have anything to look forward to on that side of the football this year? Because there's still a lot of talent. Even people talk about the linebacker position, but there's still a lot of talent on that side of the football. And there's been a lot of talk this offseason that they are looking to improve. So I do want to see those guys show me something this weekend.
Well, I guess we can close out since you took every goddamn name that I was going to talk about.
You got some more?
It's like, nah. But listen, though, I'm going to rehash a couple of them. Brian Robinson was definitely a guy on my radar. I think the storyline for Brian Robinson is impressive because, he started out training camp. Obviously because, Antonio Gibson was missing a lot of time, but started out training camp, starting drills as the first running back on these drills. And there was a lot of attention on him early on. And I think to Colin's point, I want to say it was Colin a few segments ago, he mentioned, you don't have that you don't draft a running back in the 3rd round if you don't plan on using them. And to that extent, if Antonio Gibson ain't around, you're going to make sure that your high pick investment is going to get as much look as he can as a running back. As the first look for that unit in drills and stuff like that. And even in team drills as well, you want to make sure that he has those exposures to see how he fares and things like that. So for me, Brian Robinson is definitely going to be a guy that I'm locked in on. You touched on several other pieces, and I'll briefly touch on Cole Turner only because if there's a slight chance that he'll play, I'll say that Cole Turner, he's been the wild card, like in a good way for this offense, in that a lot of people didn't really anticipate that he'll hit the ground rolling to this degree. I was a fan of Cole Turner coming out as I watched him, because I really didn't watch him coming out, but I was able to watch him after he came out and after he became a Commander. And I really liked what I saw in terms of his versatility from a receiving standpoint. I didn't think that I really didn't appreciate his foot speed. I thought that he was a little slower. But I think that the way that they're describing his practices, the only practice that I was there, he got hurt, so I didn't get to see it in person. But the way they're describing his practices is that, he's not necessarily having any issues with that foot speed, and things like that. So if he is around, I would love to see how he maneuvers in a game situation, being able to beat man coverage, being able to run down the seam and create separation and all these other things. And if it's working for him, I'm not expecting him to block in line. He doesn't have the frame to do it. He's getting thrown around like a rag doll in practice. So I don't expect it to change when he's in game. So those are the two guys that I'm focused on. And then there's another wild card offensively, and that's Sam Howell. I've said it 1,000 times before. I'll say it 1,000 times or one more time right now. If you are a great quarterback, if you are a person who, regardless of your draft status, shows that you're capable of competing in this league, it doesn't matter when you're drafted, you will be able to show that on a down in and down out basis in preseason, and it's going to be hard for coaches to deny how good you are. And I think if Sam Howell is the person that was that prospective first round draft pick, bruh, then he's going to be the same person that they projected in 2020 playing in preseason in 2022. They're still going to see that dog in Sam Howell. So I want to see like how far off was the evaluations in 2022 compared to what people were seeing in years prior for Sam Howell. That's offense. Defensively, for Darian Mathis, that's my guy. I have said that 1,000 times. But not only for Darian Mathis to this point, because that's my guy again. I want to see how the rest of the defensive line plays. Shaka Toney, Bradley King, who was the other guy I was looking at? Casey Toohill. Those three. A lot of people said that, or I've seen a couple people who say that Casey Toohill is a stock up guy to this point in training camp. I would say this one thing. Armani Rogers, who's a tight end, a converted tight end from quarterback, was able to hem that nigga up in pass protection on Saturday at FedEx Field. And while that was only one rep, think about the situation with Montez Sweat, and he was getting blocked by a tight end. And he told the coaches out loud, "Don't put no goddamn tight end on me because I'm gonna run through their ass." And for Armani Rogers to hem up Casey Toohill on a pass protection situation, I'm not like saying that was the end all be all, but I will say that was something that showed itself last year when I was watching the film. Still am watching the film, to be honest with you, because I'm still trying to learn some of these younger guys. But these guys aren't really shedding blocks in terms of pass rush. They don't have like a go-to tool bag in pass rush moves and pass rush situations. So I'm all about the trench work on the defensive side of the football. You're right in Jamin Davis. There's even Percy Butler out there that people could mention. But for me, I need to see that trench work. I need to see that defensive line, because if Chase Young ain't going to be around, Dre, guess who's going to be fucking active when regular season starts? It's going to be all those guys that I just named. So we need to see how these guys play, because they're going to get a lot of burn when Carolina starts up.
I want to actually give out one person who I'm looking at, and I've been hearing some things about this guy. The edge rusher that they have out of Michigan State, undrafted free agent, Jacob. Jacob Panishik. Anyway, from what I heard, this guy has a real motor on him, and he's somebody to kind of watch out for. So I'll be looking forward to him, I guess, when he comes in the third quarter or whenever he comes in. He might be a guy that kind of makes a name for himself out there this preseason as an undrafted free agent.
Hey, that's something to look forward to too, and I agree. I heard. Oh, first off, no, I got introduced with him with a video. Like that man was squatting tires or some shit, or bench pressing tires or some shit. And I'm like, bruh, you have a full fucking uh gym at Michigan State, and you want to bench press tires, bruh? Like I don't get it. Um, but yeah, nah, I definitely think that he's kind of part of that whole situation, that whole defensive line, and who knows, like. At this point, because nobody really showed themselves, like Ron Rivera obviously trusts this defensive line last year, and he wants them to grow and mold into the way that he envisions these guys playing. But that Jacob was his name, that Jacob guy. There's not the door isn't closed. Like there's plenty of room for some people to make their name and make their case, because that defensive line, it has too much depth already, so he has plenty of time to make his case. And you're right, it actually starts for him.
There's a hole open for him. Chase won't be available for some games, so there's a hole, man. He might, if he can make a name for himself. I mean, him and Shaka Toney is another guy that really intrigues me. I mean, because Shaka Toney coming out of Penn State, he had that edge bending. That I love for those defensive ends. They can just get around that edge so easily and so quick. But we didn't get to see a lot of them last year. But those are two guys I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this coming week.
Yeah, Shock only played 10% of the snaps last year, and that was actually surprising when I looked at that number. So it was interesting to see how Ron Rivera was able to give a scouting report on him a couple days ago. I'm like, nigga, he ain't even play last year. but whatever. Okay, any closing thoughts before we get up out of here, Dre? Man, I can't wait till Saturday. But anything you want to close out on, let the people know what you got going on, or anything?
Nothing too much, man. Like I said, we're just getting ready for the season, man. Matter of fact, Jamal, this is our favorite time of year coming up. We got some betting season is coming up. Maryland need to get their shit together so we can do our online thing. We ain't got cross city lines or do the offshore stuff. You know what I'm saying? Get that right. Let us do
go
our
to
thing.
Fucking
DC, Virginia.
All them
casinos,
man.
You know what I'm saying? Nah, let us do the online thing. It's college football season right around the corner. Like I said, preseason this week, man. I'm just, ready. Like I said, I'll be at training camp tomorrow to see the guys for myself for the first time this offseason. So
let the people know your Twitter for those who are listening on the podcast. Let the people know your Twitter so they can go find you, bro.
Yeah, matter of fact, my Twitter is my name on here, DC Sports Dre. So if you watching this thing, you see my name up there. That's my Twitter account right there, DC Sports Dre. Check me out, man. All DC Sports all the time.
There you go. With that being said, y'all, hey, listen, I'm back tomorrow for the Commanders Morning Show. Dre will be back. I forgot what we agreed on with the preseason stuff. We're gonna talk about it. So pay attention. We may do post game on the stream, or we may do Twitter Spaces. We talked about Twitter Spaces. I definitely brought that to y'all attention. But either way, we're gonna be around. We're gonna be around in the next few days. So. Yeah, y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all day. Enjoy y'all night whenever y'all watching. All that good stuff.
Peace.
Peace.